Susie Petruccelli, whose book Raised a Warrior is available on Amazon Kindle now, so you should go get it. We always appreciate getting to talk the issues with you. How are you doing? And thanks for joining us.
I'm good. I always love being with you guys. Thank you, and happy Memorial Day Friday.
Absolutely, we.
Rumor has it that you get a special deal on Amazon at the end of the month, just if you mention us, or if you don't.
Yeah,
so
it's really cool. It's only 199 right now, just for the until the end of May. So
these are exciting times for women in sports and the journey that you have traveled in terms of watching women fight for equal pay in soccer. We'll put other sports aside for a second. Just the struggle that you've seen. What was your reaction to seeing that a settlement had been reached with men's and women's soccer getting equal pay?
I mean, I think there was my life before this agreement and the settlement, and now my life afterwards. I mean, it's just a huge turning point for particularly women in soccer, but women around the world, really. It's a cultural shift. It's just an enormous, and also, the fact that it was a collaboration between the women's national team and the men's national team. It's just so, it's so hopeful, right? It's so inspirational, especially right now when, we get a lot of grim news, right? I mean, these are two teams, men's and women's teams, that believe in each other and value each other and are working together. And they're both, there was some give and take on both sides. They're both sacrificing a little bit, and they're both gaining. So it's really, it's exceptional. It's historic.
Look, you've been talking about it for so long now, and what's shocking to me is not that the two teams were got together to do it. It's that the overarching organization seemed to be an impediment for so long.
Yes, they were. Yeah, and they would continue to be. If Carlos Cordero had gotten reelected, we wouldn't be here, right? We're here because Cindy Parlow Cohn is now the president of U.S. Soccer.
So how important is it? Because Cindy Cohn is only president of soccer because people spoke up. So how important, what are the lessons that you take away from the result? You've seen the journey. You've seen where it's gotten in terms of the solution at this moment in time. What are the lessons learned along the way that you can play forward for what comes next for women in this arena and in other arenas?
I mean, I think, we keep saying that we need more women in leadership positions, right? We need more diversity on boards. We need more diversity in general, and I think that's really sort of the biggest takeaway for me. And but I also think that the way that the contracts were, or the CBAs are designed now, it's like I was saying, it's a benefit to both sides, and I think so. The women presenting it, and also the men started started participating in the women's negotiations, right? They started as spectators, I guess there's a better word for that, but they started as non-participants, and then they started participating in the women's negotiations. And so I think that's really when it started to really turn around and really come together. And I think that's one of the biggest takeaways that we need to move forward is when the men started to see the logic behind the women's arguments is when it really started to move forward.
One of the things that was part of this landmark agreement wasn't just the equal pay, but it was also establishing a players fund with $2 million to benefit players during their post-soccer careers and to invest in charitable efforts aimed at growing the sport for women. If you were running that fund, where would you put that money first?
Oh my gosh, what a great question. I would pour most of it into the grassroots level, particularly referee training, coaching training. We need more female coaches. We need more female coaches at every level. From the grassroots all the way up to the pros. So I would probably start there. But yeah, I love that question.
I'm not as good as Jeff with my questions, so I'm just gonna
Give
say
it give it a try, Jason.
what's the it's more of a what's the reaction in the soccer community? They fought for so long. Is it victory, relief? Is it
It's definitely victory and relief, from my community, right? But Carlos Cordero, that most recent election, just this year, was very close, surprisingly close to me. I was surprised. I mean, maybe people on the inside weren't as surprised. So, I have to assume that there's almost 50% of the voting, people in U.S. in the federation that are disappointed. That's an assumption that I have to make, that some people are disappointed and they still don't understand why.
Well, so that's I guess that's the question is why is somebody who's been such a polarizing force within soccer, somebody that ran again and came so close to being in power again, and
He made
how
a
do you?
lot of promises. Yeah, he made a lot of promises. He apologized. But that falls very flat to me. I honestly, I can't personally ever trust him again. And I think there's a lot of people that feel that way. We just don't trust that he'll actually make any change. He's not the right person to revolutionize U.S. soccer from the ground up.
Yeah, so the next thing is this isn't over yet. This is a start as far as I think most of us
Hmm.
are concerned who care about this. And this only dealt with US soccer. What's the next step, if there is a next step, to making this international?
I mean, it's very exciting. I mean, Cindy Cohn and everyone's talking about the next step, which is obviously equalizing pay money across the board in the FIFA Men's and Women's World Cups. And Cindy has said that she's going to start pressuring FIFA. And I've also heard that because the 2026 Men's World Cup is going to be partially hosted by the United States, they're considering ways to use that as a platform to push for equal pay for the following year, which is the 2027 Women's World Cup. And again, it's the men also driving this, right? I mean, the men would be using their platform during their hosting of the Men's World Cup to drive forward this issue, because they know that it benefits both teams, right? The women are still going to be the dynasty that they are within the next 8 to 10 years. So if they start to equalize prize money at the FIFA level, that benefits the men, and they are not, that's not lost on them.
I think it's unfortunate, but not surprising, that the men's voice is what kind of added more sway. How do the women feel? Is it excited to have advocates joining them, or why wouldn't you listen to it when we were talking type thing? Is there a little bit of that where why is our voice not enough here? Because I was surprised that Carlos got that close to winning election again. Again, I'm not on the inside like you, but given all the things that were out there, you would think there'd be enough voices to sort of move past that, but that doesn't seem like it's the case.
Yeah, I mean, I clearly not as inside as you may think, because I was surprised that the election was so close. I guess it's going to be interesting to see where nobody knows where this is going to go, right? I mean, it's going to be very interesting to see how it all works together, how the two teams continue to work together, and obviously how things progress in the next election for U.S. soccer. Is there going to be some kind of backlash? And nobody knows. It'll be really interesting to see.
This is only a small part. This is just US soccer. This isn't the professional leagues that a lot of these women play in when they're not playing on the international level. What is being done with regard to those organizations? And I'm not just talking soccer, I'm talking women's basketball as well, to make sure that those organizations start to thrive and start to benefit the way that men's organizations do.
I mean, that's the key question too, right? It's like, how do we grow investment in the women's game? How do we change? We have to continue to change the mindset that Carlos Cordero had, and very openly, publicly stated that he believed that female athletes were, inferior to male athletes. Like, that was his stance. That, thank goodness, like, turned out to be his downfall. But only because the sponsors pressured, started to bail on him, bail on U.S. soccer. So, I think that hopefully this does spark a ripple effect. And I do feel like we do need to give credit to federations around the world that are committing to equal pay, right? I mean, there are a dozen federations around the world in soccer specifically that have already committed to equal pay. Not specific, like the one new thing that we've done in the U.S. is that we've committed to equalize World Cup bonuses. And we're splitting the World Cup prize money equally here, which is new and obviously very important. So I think we're setting an example in that way, particularly. But also, something cool that I haven't seen mentioned that much that I noticed was in the new CBAs was that the men are now going to get childcare, which for their families, which was never, the women have been getting that for 25 years. That was one of the first things that the women fought for and won. And so that's something that's been added on the men's side. So it's not just about equal pay for the women; it's about equalizing the game for everyone.
Well, and I don't know if you saw, but it's equalizing the game, lots of different games. We just had
Yeah,
the other day Major League Baseball talking about the way that women in baseball need to have better facilities for themselves. I don't know if you've seen that and what your thoughts are on that.
so you're talking about female players?
It's everything. It's managers, it's staff,
Coaches.
communications people. Basically, baseball sent a memo saying that numerous clubs fail embarrassingly below the high standards necessary. Apparently, there's some places where women have to walk across the stadium to go to the bathroom because there's a different facility
Yeah.
without a bathroom in there. And so is that where we're seeing an eye opening for people at all levels of sports, where women in management and women in different positions throughout the team are starting to realize that teams need to give them space too, not just men.
Yeah,
And it's not
I
just
hope so.
about
I
pay.
mean, right. It's not just about pay, right? It's about facilities and travel and general treatment across the board. But again, like this started, right? Let's go back to like the 60s, right? When in the NASA building, there was no women's restroom, right? They just didn't have a women's restroom.
Hmm.
So it's a similar thing. So this has been an ongoing thing, that women are, very, very slowly winning, you know, the same resources and the same facilities that men have had, and it's happening. It's just going to take time. I think the attitudes are the hardest to change. And again, like the fact that Carlos Cordero could very without any shame say to the world that we don't think these women deserve the same as the men. It's just it's that's the part that we really need to just
Obvious,
make a huge step forward on.
obviously getting big money backing and diversity and ownership and leadership is important. You see women specific cleats from Ida Sports, Mark Cuban
Hmm.
backing Mula Kicks. Those are both at Dick's. Jeff and I thought it was cool that we can actually invest in teams. For $50, we can get into Lose FC, we can get into
Yes.
Minnesota USL. So for $100, we could be owners of the teams.
And we're
How
gonna do
and
it.
I think we're going to do it
Mhm.
from the heart of
Please
sports. But
do.
talk to
Yes.
us about the creativity that comes from the grassroots side of generating support, along with that larger money that needs to come in to really prop up to make this rise the way you want.
Yeah. So I think that creativity, first of all, the first thing that comes to mind is that creativity comes from the fact that we've had to think out of the box, right? Mainstream media has been very like almost impossible for us for women's sports to break into, right? I mean, obviously in the last, like, I would say 10 years, it started to get a little easier. But we're still at 4% of overall sports media, right? I mean, so we still have a very, very, very long way to go.
So when you talk a long way to go, to me it starts from the grassroots. It starts with the youth. And you talked about this $2 million and using it for different things. What do we do to help young women get more involved and stay involved and continue to see the Carly Lloyds and people like that of the world in a way that boys have always seen Mike Trout and people like that?
I think that's going to happen now. Hopefully, we've started a little bit of a wave for that. Now people are seeing the new contract that Trinity Rodman got. Now people are seeing the new contract that Dawn Staley got. People are seeing, I think, and also that money that's going to those women is going to have a massive effect on like their presence in social media and their sort of status almost, right, in society, right? So like it's going to become they're going to become stars, and they're going to become influencers, and they're going to be part of our elite levels like sports conversation the way the male athletes are. And I think it's just going to start to inspire. I mean, Title IX changed everything, right? And we started to see, more female college athletes, and that started to inspire younger girls like my generation, right? And I just think like all of these things are just going to start inspiring the younger generations more and more and more.
And that's what it is. It's the leaders and role models that the women are seeing success today will become tomorrow. You mentioned Dawn Staley. We had Jesse Washington on the show in a piece that they did at The Undefeated at the time. Dawn Staley gave a piece of her championship net to all of the African American female coaches in college sports. It may have been all the female coaches. I don't remember. And that legacy of creating that connection between those women, that's how you're going to see other women advance. And I can't wait to see more women to be able to pull other women up, so it's not men that have to help push it along for people to be heard.
Yeah.
Obviously, while we do that, your voice is still critical in the conversation, so we appreciate your help with this.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've been working together from the beginning. I mean, even Title IX wouldn't have been passed if it weren't for Bert Fye. It would, and also obviously the women, Bernice Sandler, Patsy Mink. So I think we've been, there have been women driving it, like from the inside, and then we've always, always, always relied on male allies. So it's always been a team effort, which is very, very cool.
You talked about investing in teams. One of the things that literally just struck me as we're sitting here talking is NIL, and that maybe this is an opportunity, NIL with regard to name, image, and likeness. And we talk about how college football players are getting millions of dollars, to play. That maybe this is an opportunity to invest in the future of women's sports through NIL deals for female athletes.
Yeah, and I think that is happening. Like and I'm not great on these statistics, but I do believe that a few of the top NIL recipients right now are the women's gymnasts.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you're right. I think again, like the way our sports society is structured. Like right now we have the male football players, the male basketball players. Like those guys are still sort of at the apex, let's say, of the financial structure of our sports society. So yeah, we have that has to change. Like we need to even that out a little bit, and I do think it's happening. The problem is like we get like a PLL or something, right? We get like a new men's lacrosse league, and they're on a major network right away, because all the guys call up their friends. They're like, hey, put us on your network. Yes, okay. Well, then they're on the network on a major network in a couple of months. It's so much harder for women, right? I mean, the NWSL still is not consistently on a major network, which needs to change. That needs to change.
Which I find interesting because you're seeing major sports move to streaming platforms while women's sports are just trying to get on terrestrial TV. And so it's this dichotomy where you've got these major sports that are trying to diversify where they're serving content. And instead of it being backfilled with the women's sports that are desperate for the attention, you see this new programming ordered. So look, Susie, we always appreciate the time coming on. The book is Raised a Warrior, a memoir of soccer, grit, and leveling the playing field. You can get it on for a special deal at Amazon for an Amazon Kindle. Susie, thanks so much for the time. You have a great weekend, and we appreciate the take all the time.
Have a great weekend, guys. I always appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you.